Welcome back to the KDL 2023 Team League Finals. My name is Wolf, still with State, and we had Phase 1 go a little bit unexpected. We had Liiv SANDBOX take it 2-0, no ace match required. They won speed, which was a shocker, and then denied the reverse sweep in item mode. They have all the momentum right now.
Yeah, in kind of a crazy turn of events. You know, coming in, talking about this in the first pre-show, we were discussing how, KWANGDONGFREECS, they don't really feel like they're beatable in speed. They've been killers from KDL preseason 1 all the way into the regular season. It feels like every iteration of KDF, they keep getting better. And then Liiv SANDBOX had some of the most impressive starts in speed tracks I've ever seen. I think every single one of the tracks that they won in speed, they just got this lead early on with either one or two players, and they basically just never relinquished it.
Yeah, and on the other hand, for the side of KWANGDONGFREECS, they just haven't been able to maintain the ability to get anybody but Spear up into the front on those losses. So really unfortunate for the side of KWANGDONGFREECS that they just can't get their normal setup, which is to have two of their runners in first and second, and then to have Spear in fourth. It was Spear in second. The midfield was dominated by KWANGDONGFREECS, but they could never really push it to the next level because the starts were so fantastic for usually Jimin and Byung-Soo. So here are our results if you are just tuning in. Both of these did go to 5. But the momentum felt like all along the way was massively in Liiv SANDBOX's favor. Yes, Terracotta Twister was insanely dominant for KWANGDONGFREECS, but beyond that, the Dark Castle win for the side of KWANGDONGFREECS looked like it was almost a gimme. It was super close. They just barely got away with it. London Knight, it was a nice timing there, but it just feels like it's Liiv SANDBOX's night tonight, and I didn't think we'd be saying that. I predicted, KWANGDONGFREECS to take this 2-0, as did many of the teams, but Liiv SANDBOX clearly have improved a lot since these teams last faced off against each other.
Yeah, but speed mode, as you were saying, really didn't play out how any of us expected. I mean, 3-2 for Liiv SANDBOX. Okay, I can live in a world where that happens, where Liiv SANDBOX is winning in speed against KWANGDONGFREECS very closely, but how it played out individually for the Razors on each team was so strange. We think of Spear, and we think of him being like in rank 4 or in rank 5 and doing some incredible sweeping plays as we're getting ready to go through the draft here for phase number 2. But he was the runner, basically.
Yeah.
Nobody else had a great start. So it's kind of crazy. The same thing for Liiv SANDBOX. Jimin was just playing fantastically. He was one of the lead runners every single time, whereas I feel like we don't get to see that from him too often. It's either Byung-Soo or it's Neil, so
last time we saw this taken out, but Liiv SANDBOX actually have track priority this time around on speed, so they even have that extra advantage here going to speed, and they will select it before the bans come through. That's what the priority will gain you. So they get the Village Bayside Bridge Run this time around. We'll see what that first ban is going to be. It'll be Mine Winding Slopes. A second time here, they did ban it in the first phase.
Yeah, banned both phases here for Liiv SANDBOX. Is KWANGDONGFREECS now going to come through with ban number 2, just taking their time, although thinking back to phase 1, they were really quick with the bans and the picks, and now it feels like
the pressure's on.
The pressure's on. They're slowing it down a little bit. They are going to ban out Facility 5. I think it's a smart move for the Freaks. I feel like it doesn't really play to their strengths, which is honestly really their raw mechanics. I think mechanically KWANGDONGFREECS absolutely the best team in the league when it comes to speed. So going for one of the more technical tracks in the pick in Desert Construction Chaos, we could see potentially if Spear can shine there again as he did many times over the course of the regular season.
We'll see what this pick here for Liiv SANDBOX is going to be. It could just be Terracotta Twister once again. Wouldn't be surprised to see it. It's a track that both these teams are very good at and had a fantastic race there earlier. But taking us to Miami Drive instead, actually. Bit of a curveball here. It's a track I associate with Neil quite a bit. I think he's very good on this track. Similar to New York we saw from him in preseason 1. It's a track that suits his playstyle. And they'll take away Boom Hill Tunnel, which was the first pick for KWANGDONGFREECS in phase 1 as well. So taking that one away, even though they dominated there, they said not letting KWANGDONGFREECS have that comfort pick.
Yeah, kind of a bit of a meta game here in terms of the draft, playing a lot off of the phase 1 draft here from both sides.
Glacier Extreme Stadium could be removed here as well. KWANGDONGFREECS, if they want to take that one away, it's going to be Touring Rally instead, though, again.
I feel like you have to leave Glacier Extreme Stadium in. I know that Spear personally doesn't like it very much because it's not really a sweeping track, but the rest of the players on KWANGDONGFREECS, very good on Glacier Extreme Stadium. I expect that to be picked either in round 4 or round 5 from either of these teams.
And the question is, do KWANGDONG pick it? No, I think it's going to be both. Again, the two critical tracks we talked about in Phase 1. Terracotta Twister here first for KWANGDONG, and I think that Glacier should be coming through for Liiv SANDBOX. You know, what other curveballs do they really want to show us here? I mean, Handy Harbor's still available, but you don't want to. I don't know if you really want to pull that one out in round 5. You've already gotten so much momentum. It's so much volatility on that track, and it will be, as expected, Glacier Extreme Stadium here.
We're so smart, Wolf. Oh my goodness.
We just know. We
just know. Put us on stage.
Yeah.
We should be racing.
And maybe at least doing the map selections and the track selections. I could give you that one. I could do that one. I don't know if I could race with these guys. I don't think I could hang. I'd probably retire every race trying to hang with these guys. They finish so fast.
Yeah, well, I got to say, I like how Liiv SANDBOX played that draft. It feels like they were kind of metagaming KDF a lot more than KDF was metagaming them based on the Phase 1 picks. I think KDF here was just trying to play to their own strengths, where Liiv SANDBOX was like, all right, let's see if we can pick some of the maps that you banned there in the first phase and then maybe throw a couple of curveballs your way.
You always have the advantage when you have speed priority second in this because you can react to what has already happened. Whereas if you have it first and you win, then they have to react to you, but they still have that opportunity in the second one to get that advantage. But if you lose the first one, it feels really bad because now they have this extra edge on you. They've already taken Phase 1. I'm going to move into item here. We'll see what KWANGDONG have planned this time around, as this is it, do or die right now with Liiv SANDBOX taking this first phase, and they'll take out Graveyard Cemetery Circuit. Not a surprise they did that. It was actually banned last time by Liiv SANDBOX. No one wants to play on this track right now.
Yeah, and the ban coming through is going to be Mine Motherload there. First ban for KWANGDONG as Liiv SANDBOX is getting ready to make their selection.
Yeah, Mine Motherload is where the Dalda finish happened last time. They do not want to relive that bad memory from Phase 1.
Forest Misty follows the ban here for Liiv SANDBOX as we are speeding along here in item mode. Selection coming in is will be Graveyard Dark Castle.
They could go for an early pickup here of London Knight, or go for the Clock Tower Crossing if they want to go for more timing-oriented tracks, because they seem to have that down. It will be Graveyard Dark Castle again here instead, though.
The Graveyard tracks are so good for Liiv SANDBOX. They've really been dominating those tracks over the course of this year. I've been impressed with their play a ton.
If you look at the stats here, this track absolutely makes sense. But if you look at what happened on the track itself and how they've been playing tonight, I am pretty shocked to see KWANGDONG actually pick World Tour London Knight against a Liiv SANDBOX that have shown so much versatility and great timings to close these tracks out.
I think you just trust the larger data set instead of the one map that you played earlier, because there is a lot of volatility in item mode from track to track. When it comes to showing skill in item mode, it comes over large sample sizes because there is some variance in each specific track, each specific race.
So they didn't take Clock Tower Crossing. KWANGDONG takes that away. Forest Mushroom Caves will be banned again.
Oh, Mine Magma
And then
Cavern.
Mine Magma Cavern. This one is coming through.
I'm doing my little Magma Cavern dance, man. It's my favorite item mode track by
It's a great
far.
track. It's a great track.
Oh,
Final
man.
track, will we see... I don't think we're going to see Cogwheel Crush again. KWANGDONG this time has the final selection. One more than they had last time. Where did they want to take us here? It was really important, that fifth track last time. It's going to be Seaplane base.
I think that pick makes a lot of sense here for KWANGDONG even though the stats don't really back them up. I think they're slightly more tempo-oriented play. You know, while Seaplane base isn't the best tempo map, it is better than, you know, a lot of these other tracks that are available here for the Freaks. So if they want to play to their strengths, similar to the way they did it when they were attempting the reverse sweep in phase number 1, I do like that selection.
Yeah, it's not a bad one by any means, and it's, you know, a little bit more safe than Cogwheel Crush, for example, if all your hopes and dreams are on that one.
Imagine deciding the championship on Cogwheel Crush of all tracks.
It could have happened, but it's not going to be happening, at least not this time around, not in our first real KDL finals. So if we do see KWANGDONG win this final phase here, we will go into a King of the Hill matchup, which is going to be in what we like to call the all-kill format here in Korea. It's been a pretty standard format for StarCraft leagues and other leagues out here. And we chose some of the matches that we really would love to see if we, in fact, go to that final phase. I went for Cool and Neil. I want to see the rematch from what we saw last week. It's definitely the standout matchup for me. I think it's very likely that if Neil ends up getting ahead and there's a player that's going to be chosen, because the first one will be random. No one knows who your opponent's going to be, right? You don't know who you're going to face off against. But, for example, if Neil wins one, they'll call Cool out He beat him before, you know, could be World as well, they call out, but that's the one that I expect we'll see it for sure, and the one I want to see the most.
Yeah, for me, I'm mostly interested in seeing Jimin. I think Jimin Sungmin is a likely matchup that we're going to get, but more than anything else, I want to see Jimin race in the King of the Hill format, because this is the guy who went from preseason 1, the item ace for Liiv SANDBOX, to basically being a perennial solos finalist here in KDL as an individual racer. And once they had a bit of a restructuring when one of their players left for military service and they brought in Byung-Soo, formerly known as Speed, Jimin went from that item ace role into a hybrid role. And since then, he has been one of their best speed racers, not just in the individual races representing LSB, but also the team speed matches. So
yeah, especially today too.
Yeah, I mean, it feels really odd seeing Jimin, you know, if you talk to me back in KDL preseason 1 and you're like, State, Jimin is going to be like the best racer in phase 1 of the first finals for the KDL against the KWANGDONG I would have thought you were crazy.
Well,
he doesn't play in speed, but he's been dominating today.
Well, he and Byung-Soo were the new players to come through to replace the players who had to go to the military, right? Insu played in preseason 1, but then, of course, he had to leave, wasn't in preseason 2. But in this first finals, you know, it's he and Byung-Soo who are really stepping it up and getting those great starts, because the starts have been theirs, really, in what we've seen in speed mode. The growth of Jimin's career over such a short period of time is insane. He's still obviously very young and very talented, so he is definitely a player I think that everyone should have their eyes on right now, because he's doing everything at an extremely high level. And if you watch him just isolated without knowing the other context, you might be like, oh, he must be the specialist for great starts. I mean, not really, actually.
No.
Is he a specialist for item ace? He was, but he still has that skill set. Is he really good at solos? Actually, yes, he is really good at solos as well.
He was, I think, the only item ace, if memory serves, that made it into the top 8 for the solos.
So we are going to take a break, guys. When we come back, phase 2.
Check if my name in your mouth, better add the respect. Otherwise, pressure gon' be at your neck when I burn you like. This ain't a game, my aim is the throne. I'm much higher than you, like a rocket, a drone. I'm powerful, think of a stone. Throw it off in my brain and I'm bad to the bone.
The stage is set. It is time to begin phase 2. A packed audience here tonight in our arena. It is very tense in the audience, as you could see in those camera shots. A lot of people really surprised by the initial result here. Liiv SANDBOX leading 1-0, but it could all change as we move into the second phase.
Yeah, especially considering how close it was, both in speed mode and in item mode. Both going to track number 5, 3-2 wins for LSB in both speed and item. But now coming into phase 2, KWANGDONGFREECS, they've had that break. They've been able to reset. It's maybe about 15 minutes between the end of phase 1 and when the matches actually start again in phase number 2. I know they have a fantastic coaching staff who's probably talking them through, calming them down like, guys, it's okay. You won KDL preseason 1, you won KDL preseason 2. You've dropped a phase to LSB in the past. You can still do this. So I'm expecting them to come in here with a bit of a reset mentally. And I would not be surprised if we did end up going to that King of the Hill. But at the same time, Wolf, Liiv SANDBOX has been playing so well.
And I really think the momentum is going to be the critical part of this in terms of how the speed mode starts off, because we end with Terracotta and Glacier Extreme Stadium, but if you've got the edge mentally, you have the numbers advantage in terms of leading going into those final tracks, you're going to feel great. Now, Liiv SANDBOX did have 3 of the 5 track selection here for this one, our second one here in phase 2. Construction Chaos and Terracotta Twister were the choices here of Kwangdong Freaks, but bit of a curveball here in Miami Drive coming through for Liiv SANDBOX, a great track for Neil, and then Bayside Bridge Run is a track that Kwangdong has struggled on against Liiv SANDBOX historically. They banned it in Phase 1, but this time with track selection priority, Liiv SANDBOX gets to pick before that first ban, so they got away with it. So feels like there's an edge here already for Liiv SANDBOX, but the driving is going to have to back it up again. And so far, in our first phase, it was really impressive what we saw. We'll see if they can carry that forward here, or if Kwangdong Freaks are now in the zone.
Yeah, I feel like this draft, more so than the previous draft, really favors the teams that picked their track as we're getting ready to start Phase 2 here between Kwangdong Freaks and Liiv SANDBOX on Village Bayside Bridge Run. Let's kick off speed mode now.
We begin Phase 2 here now between Kwangdong Freaks and Liiv SANDBOX, and the start here is a little bit rocky for Neil, but again, Byung-Soo and Jimin, they just do it every single track. They're in top 2, but they're outnumbered this time around with Neil dropping back here, and Kwangdong Freaks has a lot of midfield control.
I'm actually surprised to see Cool right back in the top 3, top 4 here for KDF, because his jump out of the gate, once this track started, he went to try and basically sweep everybody from LSB right from the get-go. It's a big reason why Neil is all the way back down there into the 6th rank, but at the end of the day, Byung-Soo and Hyun-Soo, the Soo duos, holding on to the top 2 positions here.
And we'll see if Jimin and Neil can come up and try to provide some assistance, because the gap is not wide here, and Spear is already cutting through. Sungbin also hot on their heels, and Kwangdong Freaks, all they really need is someone to get top 3, and that's going to be locked up here. Sungbin actually will botch the turn there with a collision, and this really hurts the momentum here for Kwangdong Freaks, but it's still a neck-and-neck race.
Yeah, and Hyun-Soo's been doing such a good job for Liiv SANDBOX of slowing down Cool and Spear. Now, the blocking hasn't been perfect, but it's been enough to buy time. Moves like this, just slowing down Spear every chance he gets, allows Jimin to come in on the inside, and now Jimin can do a little bit of sweeping on his own. LSB, it looks like 1-2 might be the win condition here. Spear on the outside going to try and find the angle, but even on this straightaway with drafts, KDF still in 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Yeah, this is not looking great here. Spear going to try to push his way through. Cool coming in as well. The timing of this is good right before these tighter turns, trying to push their way forward. Now they have the advantage here. Kwangdong Freaks.
Wow. Man, the momentum shifts in just a moment there as Hyun-Soo's going to try and go on the upper level. Will he be able to break up the 1-2 here for KDF? No! He gets zoned out by Spear, the sweeper coming through, and it looked so good for Liiv SANDBOX up until those final moments, but Cool and Spear able to come through with some clutch drafts, weave through the net of LSB, and in the final 200 meters, they were able to take the top 2 positions.
And when you have midfield control like that, you can actually you can afford to use your Nitro on a straightaway to get an advantage. You will then be behind in Nitro for some of those turns, and you won't be able to necessarily take the tightest of lines, but you will be then in position to block and actually try to stop them from taking those lines and make their Nitros less efficient. And so it was a risky call to actually go for that on the straightaway, and very rare to actually see on Bayside Bridge Run, but they pulled it off. They made it happen, and we're seeing a lot of really great decisions from both these teams, risky decisions and not the standard play you'd see in order to take the tightest and the best line, but they pull it off. They take this first track. They've got the momentum this time as we move into Phase 2. As we move into the 2nd track now, Desert Construction Chaos, we'll see if Liiv SANDBOX can tie it up.
Phase 2 speed mode continuing on here on Construction Chaos, as all eyes are going to be on the sweeping of Spear. Should he be able to get past a couple of these Liiv SANDBOX players and start to throw a wrench into their machine, be a real problem, especially with Kwangdong Freaks, Cool, and Sungbin fighting for that top 2.
So really outnumbered here, unfortunately, but the midfield is under his team's control. And he is actually trying to catch on to Cool here and take that first place spot so the rest of his team can break through. It's Cool with a really nice block. These are some of the toughest places to block on these 90-degree turns, and Cool is just not messing it up.
Yeah, Sungbin went for a big play there, did ricochet off the wall just a little, but had the boost to recover quite rapidly as Byung-Soo continues to try and pass. It is really hard to pass on these 90-degree turns for exactly that reason. You can basically get brake checked and get thrown into walls. And while Byungsu did fall behind, the cavalry is coming in here for LSB. Neil and Hyunsu hot on the tail as we finish up lap number 1, but can they close the distance on a Cool and Sungbin that are starting to get further away?
It's a really similar situation what we had on this track in Phase 1, where it's like, okay, it's Cool and Sungbin, you guys mess it up, and you lose the track because the rest of your team does not have midfield control. Byungsu is actually challenging them very early here, even before we get to those 90-degree turns. And Cool, let's see if he can hold on to this Neil close behind. He's been a little bit absent in speed mode here as well. Byungsu knocked into that wall there, losing a ton of momentum. See what Neil can get done here as we move into those turns we were talking about just moments before.
Yeah, and the fact that LSB wasn't able to pass Sungbin and Cool heading up into these turns makes this a little bit more difficult. I think Neil, he needs to fight for position 1 here against his rival Cool if LSB wants to come through with a win. Now Neil, he's looking for the outer line. He's not threatening those inners, playing this very safe. He does have 1 blue nitro in the bag, but that safety, it's not rewarded. Instead, it's Sungbin who's taking the 2nd place position. Now Neil is going to have to try and break this up, but there's only 300 meters left to go.
Let's see how tight he can take this. Not tight enough. 1-2 for KWANGDONGFREECS will be the decider. And man, it looked good for Liiv SANDBOX in Phase 1. Very dominant performances. They took that first track, the second track as well, made it close. But this time around in Phase 2, it's more of what we expected. KWANGDONGFREECS just dominating track after track and recovering very well early on to get top 2, knowing that win condition and just never letting it go. Really nice handling of those 90-degree turns and even playing it slower and safer there in the end. And Cool and Sungbin will put KWANGDONGFREECS onto speed match point. 1 win to go to bring themselves up 1-0 in Phase 2.
Cool is in first place so long that track, he only drafted once. It's just absolutely unbelievable play as him and Sungbin were impenetrable in the top 2. There were some moments where LSB was able to eke an advantage into 2nd place just for a fraction of a second, but they fought back relentlessly, and now it is match point here for speed mode in phase number 2. KDF, can they keep the momentum rolling? Let's move on to track number 3, World Tour Miami Drive.
Off we go on track 3 here. This is the curveball pick of Liiv SANDBOX they had in the track selection here. Let's see if it pays off, because if it doesn't, we're moving straight to item.
Yeah, Cool and World off to a fantastic start here for KDF as Jimin and Hyunsu are going to try their best to close the distance. Now, this track is a field track. It's a lot more wide. There are a lot of different opportunities for turns that you can make. Try and come through with passes. It's a lot harder to block as a result of that, as you see Jimin taking advantage of that exactly. Been able to eke in on the inner line there against Cool, work his way up into 2nd place. Midfield really strong here for LSB.
Yeah, Sungbin trying to break that up as you mention it, but actually gets denied here. Trying to find any line he can, and Byungsu also knocked back here. And I feel like Liiv SANDBOX slowly losing control. Hyunsu remained in control of 3rd place, with the rest of the team falling back quite significantly on this first lap here. See what Spear can get done in 4th. The setup here, 1 and 2, is once again Liiv SANDBOX's only hope. Spear in such a good spot to actually sweep everybody else out.
Maybe they can make something like a 1-3-5 happen, but we'll have to see as we go through these turns again. World's going to go for all these boosts as he's going to try his best to pass Hyunsu, but Hyunsu with a really nice line there in the front is holding on to that 1st place. Now Jimin, if he can cause some disruption here against Spear and World, that's going to lock down the victory here for LSB as Byungsu goes for a bit of sweeping of his own.
Byungsu looking fantastic here. World will pass him though. Spear trying to take that inner off the draft. Won't get through. Liiv SANDBOX in really good spot here as Neil also breaks in now. We're on the final lap right now, and the gap here for Hyunsu is just so massive. He's not even in the conversation. He's basically guaranteed first no matter what. World, he says maybe not, but the distance here is just massive. They need to control this midfield here. 2-3. 4 Spear, 2-3-4, 2-3-5, that's what they need.
Oh no, Jimin falls behind though, and the 1st place for Hyunsu might not even matter as a 2-3-4 finish could seal the deal here. Jimin, he has to make a play. Byungsu, they have to make a play, but they're not able to do it in the final stretch. And KWANGDONGFREECS, although they relinquish position number 1 against Hyunsu, have such a strong midfield that they're able to carry it through. Not even a 2-3-4, but a 2-3-4-5.
I don't know what the coach said to this team between phase 1 and phase 2, but they are playing much better. seeing the return of the form we saw from them every time these teams have faced off. And yes, Hyunsu does win it by half a second, but the rest of his teammates, unfortunately, were knocked out in the midfield there, Jimin falling back, and there was just no way they were going to get through there. And KWANGDONGFREECS will 3-0 speed. If they can take item here, they can guarantee that we are going to that third and final phase. Neil feeling the pressure as he will once again be subbed out here for Dalda as we move into item mode. He's done all he can. I think he had a better performance individually actually in Phase 2 than he did in Phase 1. But the rest of the team just couldn't find that same start that they had then.
Yeah, I feel like it's not even Liiv SANDBOX underperforming here in Phase 2. It's just KDF absolutely stepping up when the pressure is at its peak. As we look here at the item track list, and in kind of a similar story to Phase number 1, you know, KDF previously, they were not able to get the advantage in the draft because they took speed, but here coming into item mode, now they actually have a chance. 1-3-5 will be the picks for them as we're going to go to both the Graveyard tracks to start it out, Cemetery Circuit to Dark Castle, and then World Tour London Night, Mine, Magma Cavern, and San Francisco Seaplane Base. Should we go to tracks 4 and 5? And although the Graveyard tracks are really scary here for KDF, although I know they picked it as track number 1, I really advantage LSB on those tracks.
It's interesting too, yeah, because London Night, one that I think that KWANGDONG are great at normally, but maybe not tonight. We'll see. Momentum has shifted though already here in this second phase. We'll see if KWANGDONG can keep pushing it forward as we move into our first track of item, Graveyard, Cemetery Circuit.
Kick off item mode now here in Phase 2. KWANGDONGFREECS, if they're able to win this best of 5 an item, will send us to that King of the Hill format. Liiv SANDBOX are fighting to try and force an ace match here to keep the 2-0 win.
Big water bomb there off the first item block in the choke point. Jimin also going to eat a rocket here, and World is once again trying to push the advantage. We've seen this basically every single time. It's the same playbook here from KDF. World tries to get ahead, stack shields, they use magnets early, try to get a tempo advantage. This is one of the best tracks for that playstyle. And he is getting a big edge here, but the rest of his team isn't enough to back him up just yet. Now Sungmin moving into second. He's got a big banana. See if he tosses it out here. This choke could be massive.
Yeah, Jimin now coming in, but Jimin, Hyunsu, and Byungsu actually with no items to be found. Is there a little bit poor in terms of inventory, but having at least this advantage in placement is nice for them as those Water Wisps do connect. Jimin still in first place, 1 shield, 1 banana. He will get UFO'd, and that Water Wisp as well, so.
That was really awkward for
too.
Yeah, that was really awkward for KWANGDONGFREECS, committing the magnet but then getting caught there, so it slowed it down. Then the Angel to try to protect the magnet was too late, so it was wasted.
How often do you see somebody get UFO'd and then Thunderbolted, and I think also with a Water Wisp, it still hold on to pole position? Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely insane there for Liiv SANDBOX. Is finally cool to be able to take the first position here in lap number 2.
The resource efficiency just has not been great here for KWANGDONGFREECS, and 2 shields for Cool again, but he's outnumbered in the front. When we talk about being outnumbered, it means so much in item mode because it means there's no bodies to actually absorb rockets for you, absorb wisps for you. And so it's really hard to hold on even with 2 shields. Eventually, they're just going to run out, as they have now.
And about a second behind Cool as Hyunsu's trying to close the distance. More attacks coming through. Isn't that mini-map? Cool, he's got a pretty sizable lead up there with Hyunsu. Actually, no, Hyunsu is so far ahead. I didn't even see that little blue dot. He's actually barely up there with Cool. It's really close in first and second place.
Yeah, a lot of jockeying for position actually happened off screen there, and it looked like KWANGDONGFREECS actually did get midfield control here, and this allows Cool to have that numbers advantage I was talking about. If World gets up here to challenge with Hyunsu, he's going to be in trouble. Let's see if he can grab 2. No, he gets denied actually and only gets a rocket here. No shields for Hyunsu. No nitro either. Dalda trying to push his way forward here.
But some attacks come in on Cool. He spins out. UFO abducts him as well, and Hyunsu's going to be able to ride this shield all the way to the finish line as there wasn't a lot of inventory to be found, but his teammates backing him up there with the attack on the lead racer for the Freaks, and Liiv SANDBOX are the first team, on the board here at item mode in Phase 2. Leading this best of 5 now, 1-0.
It looked really hopeless, but that final item box set for Liiv SANDBOX, so they just tossed him in, and Talda's laughing because he knows he wasn't really in range with that magnet to actually make it happen on his own. He wasn't going to be the one to find that timing. It looked doomed, it looked hopeless, but all those attacks coming through, as you mentioned and pointed out very astutely there, ended up being how Liiv SANDBOX were able to pass in the end and keep the chances alive here. So good turnaround right here, right now. Liiv SANDBOX, they need this if they want to close this one out 2-0.
Yeah, I'm liking this start here for Liiv SANDBOX after getting, frankly, dominated in speed mode here in Phase 2 with a clean 3-0 sweep. Take the first track here in item mode. This is their win condition. Win in item, force the ace, and go home early as a champion. Let's see if they can keep the momentum going. Graveyard Dark Castle.
Dark Castle is our second track here, another 3-lap track. Let's see if things change here a second time around. The barricade actually going to hit Hyunsu there.
That was Dalda's barricade too. A little bit of friendly fire. As Jimin will spin out, but is able to pick up 2 items for his trouble, both a shield and an EMP. And as we continue on here on this a bit longer track, this 3-lap track, Dalda is starting to play with a little bit of tempo right now, man.
Yeah, he really does have that extra tempo. He's holding on to 2 shields here. World gets caught, and that means Dalda is not really in range of actually getting hit by. He picks up a second shield here. Probably would have at this point wished for an EMP because he's so far ahead here.
And nobody on KDF has a single shield right now,
Nope.
so all these attacks coming in on World is going to give even more room for Dalda. I think we just saw it for a moment there, about 3.25 seconds.
Yeah.
Is the lead here for Dalda, as even more attacks come in. Now Dalda, he did get slowed down by a number of attacks, so World is eventually going to be able to take that first place position, but all those items get used for KDF, and that means LSB can strike back with a vengeance.
Yeah, they have a really nice war chest here. Spear caught by this one. World drops a shield out. Dalda going to absorb some pressure. Now, it's massive they got that UFO here. That's going to slow Byungsu down, but Hyunsu just swaps with him here using a Nitro. And now, you know, I mean, Sungbin is up here, but he has no defensive items. He only has attacking items. How much use is he really going to get out of that?
Yeah, and as a result, LSB taking the first, second, and third place positions here in lap number 2. And as a result, I mean, having all these bodies in the front means that you can kind of share the aggro among your teammates. And cool, oh no, he picks up double banana. He will be able to spin out Dalda with one of them, but that's not the items that he wanted there in first place.
Okay, shield and EMP here, but he runs out now. He's outnumbered, and he's just getting hit by everything. Even the barricade's going to stop him. Byungsu gets up in the front, hit by that UFO. Dalda has an Angel here and a Magnet. He's really well set up. UFO swap.
Oh man, that's a really smart play by him to swap out that Magnet and get the EMP. Dalda will be able to cop that now. Avoid getting UFO'd with the Angel Shield. There's so much defensive capability here for Liiv SANDBOX, and they have the tempo advantage by a lot. Dalda's just gonna bust that Angel Shield. He still has another shield to be found, and he's gonna spin his way into the finish line. And man, textbook Graveyard Dark Castle there for Team Liiv SANDBOX. Dalda early on had so much tempo advantage, and behind it, he absorbed a ton of aggro from the KWANGDONGFREECS. They spent so many items trying to slow him down that once they finally were able to work their way into, say, the first place position and the second place position, Liiv SANDBOX suddenly had such a deep repertoire of items that they could use to fight back there. And from lap number 2 onwards, they were in complete control.
Oh, yeah. And again, it's just item efficiency isn't there for KWANGDONGFREECS. So Liiv SANDBOX really have a clear grasp on how they want to hit these timings, and the communication between Jimin, Dalda, and the rest of the squad is definitely something I don't feel that we're seeing here from KWANGDONGFREECS. It feels like more of a winging it exercise, see what they get, and try to blast it out early. And there's not a lot of timings that we're seeing here. Now, going into this third track, if Liiv SANDBOX wins this third of item, we go straight to an ace match, and it could be the end of the road here. KWANGDONGFREECS won the last 2 tournament finals here for Team League, but maybe this time, the third time of asking here, Liiv SANDBOX can get it done. And Liiv SANDBOX as well here, clearly showing they are the stronger item team. That weakness we talked about earlier, really showing through.
All right, let's see if Liiv SANDBOX can close out item mode with a sweep. Track number 3, World Tour London Night. London Night in Phase 1, a very close track between the Freaks and Liiv SANDBOX, but LSB here in item mode right now, after frankly getting dumpstered in speed to kick off Phase 2, are playing out of their minds. The shot calling has been impeccable, the item usage has been so efficient, and right now I feel like it's their game to lose.
And right now you see it's a pretty close race here on London Knight, and this is very common because you don't usually look for aggressive tempo advantages. G-Man, the only player who's tried to do that here, he's since moved on from that strategy. Sungbin here does have a magnet, not going to be too useful right now, but I think holding on to that could be critical. He decides not to, though. It's a 3-lap track. It's lap 1. Wants to get some more utility, build that edge, but that's one magnet they may not have for the finish, and that could come back to bite them. A lightning actually here for Hyunsu. I feel like holding that is definitely the option you want on this track.
Yeah, it depends on when KWANGDONGFREECS decide to use their Angel Shields. They actually have 2 in the bank right now, so should they save those for the Thunderbolt, it'll be a very efficient usage. If that Thunderbolt gets popped, it will get dispelled there. All 4 Thunderbolts completely nullified by that Angel Shield, but that's a lot of defensive utility gone now for the Freaks.
Yeah, using it on that drawbridge can actually really hurt, so they had to Angel Shield that, and I think the timing there very nice for Liiv SANDBOX to get the draw out that Angel as well in this second lap. Now, in terms of finishing items here, Dalda has a magnet, Byungsu has 2 magnets, Spear at the back, 2 magnets as well. So there's a lot of different players here who actually can be that runner to go for the finish line. And I think getting attacking items set up here for KWANGDONGFREECS, if they want to control the front line here, is exactly what they need. World, let's see what he picks up here. EMP and a shield. Not going to be very effective against a multi-man magnet attack.
Yeah, Byungsu and Dalda both holding on to the magnet and the nitrous, so they're going to be the players that are trying to make the play. As World, he is going to pop that EMP for just a moment there, picks up another one. And let's go, 500 meters to the finish line. Byungsu, he's trying to get it. He gets spun out. Oh, and Thunderbolt gets picked up there. That's a lot of damage coming into KDF, but World, he just has enough momentum. And no! Byungsu with a last minute yoink, last minute magnet.
The last possible second.
Wow.
What a turn of events. So Thunderbolt as well made it look like there was no choice, there was no hope for KWANGDONGFREECS, so they still got him into pole position, but that final magnet just pulls him back and pulls us to an ace match here in Phase 2. 3-0 in speed, KWANGDONGFREECS dominate. 3-0 in item, and Liiv SANDBOX bring it back. That's a 3-for-3 here in this second phase, and it feels fitting to decide it on a 7th track in the ace match, our first of the grand finals here of our inaugural season. The question now becomes, who is coming out? You've got to feel like it's either Neil or Byungsu. Neil has been trusted so many times in these ace matches, but he has come up short against World several times. We'll see what that track is going to be if we continue that trend we talked about earlier.
Right.
And World has been the kryptonite of Neil, but Cool also recently beat Neil in the solo finals. I feel like KWANGDONGFREECS have so many options here. Now, Liiv SANDBOX aside, do you want to throw a curveball and put Byungsu out? Do you want to stick with Neil and trust him, see if he can bring you that finals? Because if they win this now, it is over, and Liiv SANDBOX is going to lift the trophy.
I think it's going to be World here as the pick for the Freaks. The question right now is who on Liiv SANDBOX can take him down? He has been, as you said, their kryptonite. He's defeated them pretty much every turn. In fact, his overall ace match history, he's 7-1. He's a 90% win rate fella coming into the ace. He thrives in these 1v1 situations, and he's been able to dispatch a variety of different players from LSB. And with everything on the line here for the Freaks, I'm assuming it's going to have to be World, and the coach delivering.
He just said it. He just put it in. He whispered it.
He whispered it. I'm sure. I would be shocked to see anybody else coming in. But there's a big discussion now coming in before Liiv SANDBOX. I wouldn't be surprised if they waited until the last possible moment to decide who is going to come out, as this is a really intense discussion. And it's not just about who's the best racer on this team. It's about who's feeling the best today, who feels like they have the best chance of actually taking down World if they go for that predicted pick.
Can you imagine KWANGDONGFREECS just G-Man shows up, he takes him out here. I mean, what a story it would be, what a growth in his career. I'm feeling it's either Byungsu or Neil. They're not giving us any hints here, impossible to know. But first, of course, now that the time is up, the selection has been made, we're gonna take a look at the track selection first. It is, of course, random here to see where we are racing. A lot of crazy ones. We've had some insane races in the past year. And oh, it's going to be WKC Brazil circuit.
Wow.
It is hard to hold a lead on this track. Early advantages mean nothing. It's really about holding on to that momentum and closing out the track, especially with the 2 possible ways that you can actually end this track with a split end There is so much decision-making that goes into this one, and we'll see who the racers are going to be.
Man, I can't wait to find out who it's going to be from KWANGDONG and Liiv SANDBOX, and it's going to be World versus Jimin! Oh my goodness, the former item ace turned hybrid player who has excelled in solos is going to heed the call to arms from the invincible fleet here in the ace match. If he wins this one, they're going to be the champions.
And
man, what a matchup.
And I cannot believe that Neil has the humility to step aside and say, this guy, World, I know they're going to pick him. He's beaten me 3 times in these critical matches. It's your turn now, Jimin, to try to bring me a title. He's willing to step aside. He failed in that final match against Cool. And now, as we move into WKC Brazil circuit, if Jimin can do it, change his career from item ace to the ace player here, maybe Liiv SANDBOX will lift a trophy.
It all comes down to this. World versus Jimin, Freaks versus Liiv SANDBOX. If Jimin is able to deliver a win, and he is off to a great start, LSB are going to be crowned the first champions of the KDL. KDF World, he is fighting for the chance to force that all-kill format ace.
Jimin, fantastic on this track as well. He's picked up several podium finishes in solos here, and he's now passed by World, but holding on to leads. Again, we mentioned this earlier, so difficult on this track because there's so many lines you could take. You can nitro through the grass. You can find several different ways to pass on draft because it's a wide open track, and even the final moment is not secure because there's 2 paths to the finish line, and whatever line you take, you have to hold it fast and make sure that you get that cross finish line because the draft can actually change everything in a second. We are jockeying for position here, back and forth right now. Jimin having a slight nitro advantage.
Yeah, I love that block coming in there from Jimin, able to slow down World for just a moment. And on this straightaway, he should be able to draft and close the distance, if not pass World here on the outside. Just a fraction of a second separating these players right now. And Jimin, although he is in the 2nd rank, that is not really much of a problem here as long as he's able to keep his nitro gauge and stay close, because this is one of those tracks where coming down that final stretch, if you were in draft range, if you're as close as Jimin is right now, it's very easy to pass as he's able to take the lead.
Let's see what World wants to do here. It almost looks like he allowed Jimin to pass there so he could get a better draft here where it matters more. And now he's actually gotten the lead. Again, Jimin, extra nitro here. We'll see if it ends up mattering as we get closer and closer to the final stretch. World trying to pull away here, goes to the grass, takes the tightest possible inner. And Jimin trying to draft past, finds the angle.
Man, going for the inner angle there off the draft, and he has a slight nitro lead as well as we get closer and closer to the finish line. 500 meters left to go. Jimin, can he hold on to the lead? Can he block World and deliver a championship for Liiv SANDBOX?
World going through, he passes him, and no, Liiv SANDBOX will not lift the trophy yet. And we are going to the king of the hill, and Africa here, KWANGDONGFREECS, they are going to defend themselves here and bring us to that final one. And Jimin, he had it so tight, he was so ahead, but World knew the finish line there, how to take it, take that extra nitro and pass him. And oh, what a tense race it was. And KWANGDONGFREECS stay alive here. Very intense. Look at the time here, just 0.1 second between the two of them. And look at the embrace here as well as Sungmin comes over as World does it again against Liiv SANDBOX.
I mean, he just continues to add to this incredible history of ace match victories. He feels almost unstoppable in 1v1s. He is, frankly, one of the best ace match players in the world. I'm getting memories of KDL preseason 1 and preseason 2. We saw moments of glory from a variety of different players on a variety of different teams coming through in ace matches in the clutch when they were needed most, but World here on the biggest stage, if he loses that, they surrender the championship, but he's able to deliver the win. And now the KWANGDONGFREECS have picked up Phase 2 victory. We are going to the all-kill format.
Insane, insane. And how well Jimin raced, how much he's progressed in his career. That line he took to actually take the lead was a thing of art. And, you know, it ultimately didn't matter because World caught him there in the end with a nice draft in that final nitro. But this series has just really delivered. It's just like preseason 2, back and forth. We're going the distance. We'll see if we go the distance all the way down to the final track, the 7th track of this 3rd phase. We may, but going to the all-kill format here, there's a lot of strategy to discuss because who you pick first can give you a lot of momentum, but if you lose your ace racer early on, that means they won't be able to race a second time. Every racer has one life here. We're going to take a short break, and when we return, it will be that deciding Phase 3. We'll see you then.